Let's get this from the jump. Anime is amazing. I'm a sucker for cartoons. I grew up watching Ben 10, Sophia the First, Matata Chronicles. In fact, Avatar The Last Airbender remains to be my whole world. So if I'm being honest, I only started watching anime to see if I can relive my childhood again. The only one that I knew was Pokemon, and that's because my best friend Wayne and I like to battle constantly. It wasn't exactly the show itself that interested me. So when my friend encouraged me to start with Naruto, the number of 700 episodes wasn't exactly encouraging, but I took the plunge. Naruto was loud at first, but his desire to become Hokage while being mistreated by his people spoke to me, and at the end, I felt I was part of an incredible journey. Then it was the Gripping Hell's Paradise. Next it was the Goofy Caesar 7, the historical Apothecary Diaries, the personal Mushoku Tensei, and finally Frieren. And let me tell you something about starting it. I was in love again, just like I started The Last Airbender. I explored multiple stories and universes. And I told my closest friend everything about them. I felt like an adventurer who would travel the world and come back with bizarre tales. And she would always respond, "You know what? Anime is weird." And I'd giggle and say after dun, it's definitely weird out there. However, I watched Fate on no longer could tell her these tales. And it was a weird experience. I wanted something to binge on and escapade that characters will have an adventure and a happy ever after. So out of a start of a new bond with my friend, he told me, give Fate a try. Start with Fate 0. And there I was, a lot happening in my head. I knew I'd start with the wrong one, but I started my memory enough to pick the right one. It was so damn wrong. I reached home and I could only remember the Fate and the Google was no help because it was a stupid collection of Fate movies and a whole gallery of them. So I thought, hey, why not check Reddit, see if the fandom says and what I would like. But I was like, nah, too much work. Let's ask Gemini instead. And it clearly outlined this. For the best experience, start with Fate Stay Night. And that's how I've started watching Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works with no context. And oh boy, that was definitely a gruesome mistake. But okay. Before we start, what is exactly Fate Unlimited Blade Works? Fate is placed in a world at the onset of war, and our main protagonist wants nothing to do with it. It's the story of Shirou, a high school kid riddled with mental scars from the previous war, an aftermath that took place 10 years ago. To cope with it, he spends his time at school fixing broken equipment for various student clubs. He's richly generous with it. It's almost as if he's trying to fix himself. Shirou Emiya performs this by using his magical powers of strengthening the effectiveness of objects. His best friend and others warn him that he goes too much out of his way to help others, and one day they will take advantage of him. Of course, he finds this absurd, and is adamant to live his truth. And this is all tied to a memory of him being rescued by a stranger man. The joy etched on the man's face when he found him at a pile of dead bodies and flaming rubble remained glued to him, because Shirou wants a world where everybody is happy and never cries. A notion that he soon discovered that everyone finds naive and ridiculous. And it doesn't help that one late night while at school, a random man with a lancer spear crosses paths with him. While in battle in the shadows, he stabs and kills him just because he saw him. In his words, Shirou was unlucky to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Turns out though, his luck wasn't half bad, for a girl appears just as he was fading into the afterlife and revives him with magic. And before he can dazzle and wonder if what happens was a dream to him, he later crosses path and is almost impaled by the same lancer. Only this time, fate is on his side, as a blinding light from a spell circle engulfs him, and he is defended by a gorgeous woman with an invisible sword. Warding off his assailants and with the assistance of the girl who helped him and his servant Archer, Shirou comes to understand that he has been chosen to participate in a master versus master battle royale for the price of the Holy Grail, an entity that grants you the chance to wish anything you desire should you be the last master standing. Only problem is, Shirou doesn't want to partake in anything with violence. That is until he learns that the catastrophe that made him lose everything 10 years ago was the result of the wish of the winner of the previous Holy Grail ritual gone wrong. So he finally decides to take it seriously and lock in, to ensure nothing like that pain ever comes to anyone ever again. And he claims to the woman who saved him as his servant, which she introduces herself as Saber, and together they form a bond alongside Rin Tohsaka to ward off other servants and prevent the Holy Grail from reaching the wrong hands. The premise for me was incredible. Like, nothing turns my gears better than a pacifist throwing a cutthroat competition, because it's always fertile ground for moral dilemma. Like, will they survive the situation while still remaining pure, or reality will compel them to corrupt their morals? Shirou Emiya reminds me of Aang, particularly in his refusal to do his duties as the Avatar. And his compatriot Rin Tohsaka performs the same duty as Zuko. They do start as enemies, but Rin acts as his mentor. And her role particularly is to ask him, "You're already in this tournament. What are you going to do if you have to fight another master and kill them?" And Shirou wants nothing part of it. Like I said, he's a pacifist. He wants everybody to be happy. He wants to fight a war with no casualties. And reality speaking to him, saying it's impossible. Because Shirou doesn't understand, he might not want to fight or kill, but the others, particularly Gilgamesh, will get to him, really do want to kill him. It seems like he forgets that Lance actually killed him already, and if it wasn't for Rin, he would be dead. But we'll start with the characters. I will talk about Shirou later. Because right now, we need to talk about the compatriot, the red with pride, Rin Tohsaka. Rin confuses me. She has the mana, she has the knowledge, she uses gemstones and rules that allow her to release insurmountable amount of power. And yet, I don't feel her strength. It's established that a servant is as powerful as their master. It's why earlier on, Saber could not regenerate or use the maximum level of her abilities, because Shirou is a novice. Sure, Archer is powerful, and he himself says that the rationality of Rin Tohsaka is what makes her a master worthy serving. And that rationale, he says, was lost the moment he met Shirou. You see, it's presented to us that in this universe, names have power, or rather, the name of your bloodline, because the more powerful the bloodline you belong to, the better your knack for magic, or the servant that is drawn to you. And Rin is shown to have been governed by a sense of duty. More so, her family name Tohsaka has a long history that she wants to uphold. And this is exactly where Rin confuses me. While at the backyard at Shirou's house, Rin says that she felt a certain warmth at his place, a warmth that doesn't exist in her home. However, I was disappointed we didn't get to know how much weight her family's legacy is. She never speaks of her parents, or the parents before the parents, and their achievements. She just puts all the pressure on Shirou, a display of competitive edge without merit. She acts like a knife with no handle. So when she went to battle Caster and Archer betrays her, I didn't feel or understand what she had lost. She wasn't there to save Saber. If anything, it felt like a bonus. She was astounded that Shirou saved her, and we get to see her cry and allow him to see her weakness. But we don't get to understand why she doesn't want to appear weak. She's just a girl playing soldier, and when Shirou saved her, her mask doesn't just slip off her, it shatters. But we don't get to see the face behind the mask, because there was no backstory to hold the mask together. Only by watching Fate Zero do we fully understand why she adored Shirou from her childhood. But we don't get to see her ruthlessness against the other servants and masters. I didn't particularly like that she left Archer at home because he tried to kill Shirou. I thought for the stakes of the mission at hand, and the strength of Caster and her master possesses, it would have been best to keep Archer in close guard. She can still monitor him while dispatching orders that increase their chances of winning. Fate also has 3 paths where Shirou chooses to romantically entangle with these 3 girls in his life. In Fate Route, it's Saber. If Fate Heaven's Field, it's Sakura. and in fact UBW it's Rin Tohsaka. I personally feel just by watching UBW that Saber and him would have been a powerful in an emotional narrative and in power dynamics. And strangely though, Rin and Shirou just work as well. It's just shared under pointless conflict with other servants when it could be the heartbeat of the story. Saber gets to overshadow her in terms of her relationship with Shirou, and it doesn't help that there is a special episode where it encloses them to be in a harem of some sort. Funny fact, she doesn't even get a kiss in her path, she instead gets a headbutt from Shirou. The only thing they do to circulate power is through a hug. Compare that with Sakura and Saber in their timelines, and we'll have a story sort of like Live Island here. Rin had so much potential to either grow or enrich Shirou's story because of her closeness with both him and his future spirit self Archer, but it's not explicitly made clear on how heavy their dynamic is. At the end, she demands to be a nudge that pushes Shirou into thinking big about himself and joining the Mages Association, which he ends up ignoring anyway. Rin ends up being a cardboard of a character when she is so layered by associations with the others enough to be contained into a box.
I ask you, are you worthy to be my master?
Saber is a character who carries loyalty like the blade of her sword. It's alluded to us that she has made several mistakes in the past as a servant and wants the Holy Grail to help her make up for these mistakes. Her desires are somewhat a foil to Archer's, where he stops at nothing to burn his legacy, where she seeks to revive it. There is an unspoken guilt that is hidden just as well as she hides her sword. She doesn't even want others to know her name, to tingle her weakness, to grasp her failures. If anything, it only tends to come out during high-pressure situations where the people she loves are in danger. She is calm, reassuring, and overprotective enough to sleep in the same room with Shirou, just so she doesn't lose him again due to an oversight. She's the character who is forced to take charge in a team when the MC has lost the plot. The first thing she asks Shirou after she is summoned is, "Are you fit to be my master?" And she dedicates herself to Shirou that even when he loses the command sense that controls Saber, she still fights for him. She does her best to restrain the urge to obey Caster just so Shirou could run away. Caster later tries to force her will onto her, but she battles it with her spirit until Shirou and Rin could save her. She may not have been the emotional heartbeat of the story, but something about watching her lay the final blow on the Holy Grail with Excalibur grips me with marvel. Understand this. Her sense of loyalty is heavily tied to correcting the mistakes of her past, for she is actually Altoria Pendragon, otherwise known as King Arthur. Her guilt-edged mistake was being the perfect king but a failed human. She thinks that her country fell because she wasn't good enough, so she wants to erase herself from history, but she chooses to destroy the very thing that could make her wishes come through without a single thought, so that Rin and Shirou could have the future and her home. I found it beautiful, and I'm genuinely compelled to watch her history in Fate Zero. She is undeniably the best character for me. Now, it's time we talked about the servants, cause I have a lot to complain about. If Fate is a game of Pokemon, then the Holy Grail War in Unlimited Bladeworks is a glitchy ROM hack. Only that this time, the player uses command seeds instead of Pokeballs. So you're promised 7 legendary classes with balanced strengths and weaknesses, but instead, we get a narrative massacre where potential is traded over shock value. And we have to start with the one that disappointed me most, I think. Ryder, the legendary Nerf herself. Okay, let's take Ryder. In mythology, she is Medusa, a creature so petrifying she turns heroes into stone. In this show, she's a glorified bodyguard who spends most of her screen time getting bullied before exiting the stage without ever showing us her truth power. No Pegasus, no Stone Eyes, just a wasted slot in the roster because her master Shinji is a coward with 0 mana who has no motives, no purpose. It's the equivalent of having a level 100 Charizard but not having the gym badge to command it. Then there is Caster, She actually tries to play the game by hacking the system and summoning her own servant, her assassin, who by the way is a total vibe, the gatekeeper who just wants to go all out in a good fight. But her methodology ends up being pointless. She's built up as a grand manipulator, killing Ryder, summoning servants, toying with Saber. I mentioned before how Rin never gets to have a backstory to elevate her character. Where the stick card supposed to store that backstory was used up with Caster's vague one. It is said that she is Medea, Princess who only wants to go home. And she tries to hide identity too, by always wearing a mask. She kinda looks like Teen Titans Raven in a way, with the magic and the darkness and the vague elusive past, only to be sorted away like a fly the moment the plot needs to make room for the real villains. They wasted our time by making her seem like she's the endgame, even using a cool mortal instrument called Rule Breaker, a weapon that she causes masters to lose command over their servants. And that was the best part of the lore I experienced in the story, only to be soured when she gets the murderer treatment. And they end up bringing up the neutral priest whose existence annoyed me so much. His existence in the story, especially when I heard that Fate Zero is the reason why the disaster that made Shirou lose everything, is a direct rival to Shirou's adopted father. Actually, you know what? I won't even waste time, because the show clearly wanted me to waste time. Anyway, Caster seems to be enchanted by a master who, by the way, is very intriguing. He has a moral compass, or rather, a lack thereof. His problem is he doesn't know how to perceive right from wrong. And I wondered how Caster, a talented rule breaker by nature, will struggle to navigate the bidding of a man with no morals. But no, they both get killed off in the next episode so that Gilgamesh can throw more spears and swords at people. Anyway, Lancer is the main MVP of loyalty, a cool factor. You will love to hate him in the start when he tries to kill Shirou, but at the end, you will hate to love him when he saves Rin from Shinji's pointless whims. He even sacrifices himself to display Kirei, the priest, who told him to kill Rin, but is commanded to stab himself in the heart. Which he does, yes, but one of the few ability classes that this show refuses to show us in depth is Lancer gets a few seconds of health after receiving a fatal blow. In Pokemon terms, it's like he used a focus sash item. Him serving a master who is a coward and doesn't want to show himself is a huge mystery I was intrigued to uncover. But when it turned out to be just Kirei, the man who's supposed to be a neutral to the war, Lancer ends up being trapped in a loop of being told to scout and eventually die. He's a Ferrari being used as a getaway car for a grocery store heist. However, he's still the GOAT, and that part I have made clear. Now let's move on to Berserker and Illya. The emotional gut punch, apparently. This is where the heart of the show that really hurt me. Berserker is the unstoppable force. He's presented to be the spirit of Hercules and his ability to respawn when killed. And just as Illya keeps yapping, you will believe that man is unkillable. Their bond is the only one that rivals Shirou's and Saber's, but the writing decides to use them as a power scaling tool. Watching Gilgamesh dismantle Berserker wasn't just a fight, it was an execution of the show's most interesting dynamic way too early. We never even get to see Shirou confront the fact that this girl was calling him Big Brother, or why her servants keep Illya so guarded when she literally harbors the strongest servant in history. It turns out, Berserker dies after 12 fatal blows, a homage to the law of Hercules completing 12 labors before he can be welcomed as part of the gods. The fight between Gilgamesh and Berserker was epic. It was also epically pointless, because it blocks important interaction and dynamics between their masters. The fight itself is not the problem, the timing of it is. I would have been so much more compelled if they fought when Illya was defending her brother, just when he didn't have a servant. In honor of their father, she never even got to know who had so much compassion. Just like Illya in the end, the mystery was buried before it could even breathe. Speaking of Gilgamesh, otherwise known as the System Breaker, the reason all these legends feel pointless in the end. Because of Gilgamesh, he isn't just a Pokemon. He's the guy who brought a gun to a sword fight. He's ruthless, arrogant, and undeniably effective as a villain. But his presence turns the war into a cleanup crew operation. He makes the other servants look like a cardboard because he doesn't even play by the rules. He owns the rules, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The problem is, Gilgamesh is presented as a monster who just wants to see the world burn. I entered this anime thinking that everyone wants the Holy Grail to make the world better for themselves, only for it to be that everyone wants to watch the world burn, a common cause with different enforcers, and they all fail. Gilgamesh, being the king that conquers the world with infinite armory, would have been the most interesting thing if they follow the biography of the real Gilgamesh, a king who spent all his life seeking immortality, only to rest in peace by understanding that he has accomplished what no other king can accomplish in 1,000 lifetimes. However, it was interesting to see that a servant who cannot be controlled by their master, not by the scheming of Castor, Gilgamesh is straight up, tell me what to do and see what happens next. It's just a shame they wasted it on the worst, that is Mato Boy, otherwise known as Shinji. Shirou at the end doesn't get to save everyone, at least not in the sense I thought his arc was gonna be. He has a hand in the death of Gilgamesh, yes, but you don't get to feel him carry the pain of seeing Illya die. And he's not doing anything about it either. You never get to see him understand for Saber to help him achieve his goals. She will have to sacrifice what she wants most, something he himself said he's only participating in the war to get Saber for, the wish she needs. Never get to see him discuss with Rin, his girlfriend, whether he can help her start a new legacy that she couldn't carry on from the Tohsaka name. At the end, he doesn't seem to have a purpose in mind. He wants to be the hero of justice just before and carry on his father's legacy. There could be another Holy Grail war coming, but what will he do to prepare himself for the next one? He has just been from a war, and with the reckoning of Archer being his actual future self, a living telescope to what all his friends have been telling him, that he won't just be burnt out, but one day he will want the world to burn with him. In the end, as a gullible human being who always puts his friends first, I hope to see what a situation as devastating as war would put me through, to understand the reality that not everyone you love will reciprocate it. Not everyone you help will respect the energy you put into it. That just because I exist to carry on the legacy of my parents doesn't mean I'll be able to trace on my future path. Shirou had the potential to showcase my gullible self to me, to help me understand that just like the friend I lost, not everyone else can be saved. I will discuss this more when I talk about Naruto and Rudius of Mushoku Tensei, two characters who had me in battle with my personality and the cruel reality of the world. The story of Shirou isn't trying to change your moral codes to please the world. It's understanding that it's okay to be who you are, to live your truth, but to be warned, just like Gilgamesh, the world has severe punishment in store for you. It's inevitable. It's fate.